Okay, hello everybody. Hello. Welcome to. Ooh, it's not even recording. Let's try it this way. Ooh, no, don't fall, don't fall. Okay, give me a minute because my camera's about to fall. One. Two. Okay, there we go. I think I'm all set. All right. Hi everybody. Sorry for the delay. As you can see, I'm in a new environment. I'm trying to set this up, not in my comfortable space. It's a little tricky. But anywho, how's everybody doing? So, couple things. Welcome to. Hope you guys can hear me because my mic is kind of like iffy. So I'm gonna try to like not yell, but speak up. So okay, so welcome to another episode of Pure Sessions with your girl Lana. Episode 28. We'll go with that. Um, and as you can see, like I said earlier, I'm in a new environment. For that reason, I will get to in a minute. So this is episode 28. And this episode is titled Foundations for Faith. I'll get into that too in a bit, so don't you worry. But this is episode 28. And as you guys know, I do my live on YouTube at Lana Impure and do my live on IG, on Instagram at Lana Impure's Corner. Now I have two pages on Instagram. I have Lana Impure, which is kind of like the main page, for music and posts and things like that. And then I'll have my business page essentially, where I do all my podcasts on live. And I have it in IG live stories or whatever you call it. I'm still trying to get used to that, but so I have every episode uploaded there, all the live ones. So you can find that as well. And for the people who are not watching it live, for the audio, I use Anchor. Like I mentioned last week, Anchor is kind of okay. The only thing I don't like is you can only record like 30 minutes at a time, and then you got to stop and start over again. But I will say they are easy with because Anchor, you just record, your podcast or your show, and then Anchor kind of does the work essentially for you. So they upload it to Spotify, Apple, Beaker, Pocket Tune, etc., etc. So it kind of is like the only reason why I like it. But other than that, it's a pretty cool. I guess it's like a starter podcast. I guess you wouldn't call it app. I mean, there are other ones, but for people who are starting out, I would recommend using that because, like I said, they kind of do the next step for you. So you don't have to literally be on like 10 platforms at once and upload every 5 seconds. So I'll give them that. But last week I mentioned, or maybe it was 2 weeks ago. Yeah, 'cause last week I wasn't on. If you guys saw, I was on another podcast of Women of Reflections podcast, and we did Refusing to Be Silent or Silent No More, for Women's History Month. So that was pretty cool. If you guys haven't seen that, it's uploaded on my page as well as on SoundCloud too. I always forget to mention SoundCloud, but my podcast episodes are on SoundCloud as well to listen to. Not the videos, just the audio version. You can download them and stream it. Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts. Wherever you get your podcasts. Jolly's on. Also, yeah. So last week it was Women Reflections. It was a panel with me, the host, and three other ladies, and we discussed, women in the workplace, being an African American woman, refusing to be silent no more, dealing with obstacles and not having, kind of like that outlet to speak to. So it was really good. So I definitely will check it out. And it's on my page, but the full showing is it's on her podcast. So definitely check that out. And I put the link, I think, in last week's episode of Women of Reflections. I'm sorry, of Pure Sessions, and I've tagged it at Women of Reflections. There we go. So I'll put that on, so you can definitely check it out. She uploads mostly audios and videos and things like that. I'll call you in a minute, but you can definitely check that out. So, but yeah, so Pure Sessions every Sunday at 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So you have the lives here, and then you have the audio on Anchor, SoundCloud, Beaker, Apple, and all that other stuff and things like that. But I also mentioned, I think maybe 2 weeks ago, I think the beginning of Women's History Month. Not yet. It's too much. Sorry, that's too much noise. I'll call you over. Sorry about that. Yes, I mentioned, I think, in the beginning of, I think, Women's History Month that I was going to try. Well, actually, no, back up. Not this month. It might have been 2 months ago that I was trying to have more people on, or even not just more people, just interacting with more people. Because when I started this year, because I started it last year, but when I started doing the lives this year, last year I mostly focused on reading off of my book, reading a chapter of my book. Each episode would be like a different chapter, and I would discuss it and things like that. But when I started doing the lives this year, because last year wasn't the lives, it was just the audio. I felt like it would be a little bit more personal to do, do it live, because I've watched other people who, do podcasts and do shows, and they have a little more, it's more personal, more interaction, doing it live and things like that. So wow, I'll call you over. Just wait. It's too much. I'll call you in a minute. So yes, I felt it's a little more personable to do it live. But yeah, sorry for the distraction. The guest I have on is not waiting for time to come over, so it's just distracting me. I'll call you. I'm sorry. It's just people just anyway. Yeah. So as I was saying, so yes, I wanted to do it more personal because you can kind of get that more of that eye contact. I feel like if you're just listening to somebody talk on and on and on, it kind of gets so tiring, especially on the topics that I discuss. So and also if it's just you talking, it's kind of like long. After a while, it's like you're just the only one talking. And it's like, okay, but like what else is there? So I'm trying to get more people to come on, more people to, join. And I'm still getting used to doing the lives. Like I've done lives, but trying to get people to come on, trying to also do the live on YouTube. I'm not really familiar with YouTube that much, so I'm trying to like work with that too. Because I've watched other people's lives and other podcasts and other shows, and I'm like trying to like learn like like little nuggets that they use, as well as like incorporate into my show. So with that being said, there's 2 surprises actually, I should say. One for this week, and then I have another one next week. But since today is the last day of Women's History Month, and it's also, I believe it's Palm Sunday, I think. I don't quote me on that. I think it is. I had a little surprise for this week. Sorry for all the noise. Like I said, I'm downstairs versus in my room, if you guys notice, and there's a lot of music and distractions. I usually like to be upstairs because you have all the like the background noise and things like that. So forgive me if it's like all this in the back. So I'll try to speak up. But yeah, so for this episode, I'll usually rant for like 10 minutes, but I've only been talking for 8, so I'll try to make it even 10 so I can be, consistent. Yeah, so for this episode, I do have a special guest. And the title for Foundations for Faith kind of ties into A, Women's History Month, B, being an African American woman and trying to, move and groove through the world, and C, trying to, set the tone for, future generations. Because that's really what it's all about. And that's what we were talking about last week on Refusing to Be Silent. What is it? Refusing to Be Silent, leaving, not like a mark, but making the next generation not have to work so hard. That makes sense. Try to leave like some footprints and some breadcrumbs for them to follow. That makes sense. So for the Foundations for Faith, the person I have, they'll explain it better than I did, but I felt like it was a good way to kind of like wrap up and end Women's History Month with Black women and being female, and trying to have something that leaves like some footprints or leaves like a legacy for the next generation to come. Because that's what it's all about, trying to have that community you can talk to, and trying to have people who not only share what your interests are in, but also can kind of like build. It's all about building and things like that. So just to recap, like I always do, I always do in the beginning and I always do at the end. So to recap, Pure Sessions, Lana, airs every Sunday at 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, live on IG and YouTube, and on Anchor, Spotify, Apple, SoundCloud, and all the other jazz. And Lana and Pure, main page, and Lana Corner is my business page. And also in my bio on both pages, I have my website. Also lists, all the other things that I'm doing outside of this podcast with the book and my music and the new project that I'm working on now. I can't tell you when yet. It's coming out soon. But previous project I have that I worked on that came out on Valentine's Day, the Misinterpreters, that's still, from what I've been seeing, the feedback, people still like it. I kind of was a little bit iffy on wanting to, drop something on a holiday. I feel like when artists do that, it's not like it's weird. It's just like there's like an underlining meaning behind it, and there wasn't one for me. I just felt that was a good day for it to come out. But yeah, so definitely check that out. That's also in my bio too. It's called Experience the Misinterpreters, and it's on Apple and Spotify, and things like that. It's about 28 tracks. That's 28 tracks. A little bit longer than what I'm used to, but I felt like I had, I guess, a lot to say. And with this album, like I mentioned before, 2 weeks ago, 2 weeks ago, it's kind of more of on the jazzy, chill hop, trippy hop vibe versus like the upbeat dancing music, jumping around type of thing. So definitely tune into that. It's kind of like a background kind of music album, if that makes sense. Like you're listening, like you're drinking tea or coffee or wine or having a girl chat, and then this is like playing in the background. So that's kind of like the vibe I was going with. So I usually listen to it when I'm like doing something. So it's kind of like that, and it's all instrumental, so you can do what you need to do. But definitely check that out. So I have been chatting for 11 minutes, right? A little longer than normal, but that's okay. So we shall get started. But like I said, there might be like a lull when I have to start recording. Like I said, Anchor only allows you to do the 30 minutes at a time. So I just let people know who are listening that if I'm quiet for like 2 seconds, that's just me starting the recording. So I guess without further ado, I can bring over the special guest. Like I said, bear in mind, I'm in a different environment. I'm used to being upstairs, cozy, so it's a lot of noise and background down here. So just bear with me. So let's get started. Miss Special Guest, sorry, like I'm yelling. Miss Special Guest, you can come in. Let me turn this off. That's why it's so loud. Good Lord. The fan. Now I'm gonna try to bear with this because I'm not used to having a person or being down here. So if the camera is weird, I apologize. Let's do it like this. And let's do it like something. We're gonna try to figure this out together, people, because I'm not used to having people here. Alrighty then. I might have to take the mic off. That might be a thing. This is not working. One thing I will say I like about this equipment is it does last longer than I expected. Because I got this off of Amazon and it was cheap-ish. So I will say the equipment, the headphones and the mic, it's a very good product. It's what is this pen called? Audio Technica. I think I'm saying it that wrong, but it's good. It's a starter's podcast equipment. That's what the title was. Starter's podcast equipment. So if you are starting out doing gaming or podcasting or pottery, whatever you call it, I would recommend this because it's a good beginner thing. So you may have to come over because I can't.
I can use yours. I'm just trying not to be in it until you're ready.
You're fine. You gotta come over because it's 2 cameras. You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
So you gotta come over. Oh, I see. So it's weird angles. I apologize. So you're just gonna have to look here and here. That's just how the cameras are. Do that. I put it in both cameras.
Okay.
Over. All right. Yeah. So let me get to my question so I can be efficient. Actually, no, I'm not going to read off these because I think that's kind of boring. Read off questions. I mean, obviously, you're going to ask the questions while I read off it. So, what we're going to do is we're going to start with your name. What is your name, Miss? And you can have a talk here. I mean, look here, or you can look there. It's recording both ways.
Okay.
I'm talking to her people, not you. Just let me know. But if it's easier for you instead of stretching, you can just look here.
That's fine. First, I'd like to start off by saying thank you for having me on. And I apologize for not waiting my turn and all of that good stuff.
Don't worry about it.
My name is Lucia Crossland, and I am Lana's mother.
I was going to say that for last, but surprise, we're not sisters, sorry.
And needless to say, I'm very anxious. And
I don't know why. She talks all the time
about
and loves getting some attention.
Being on here with you, which I'm guessing are millennials, and hoping I can do you guys justice. So thank you for having me on.
Aw. That's okay. Don't worry about it. It'll be fun. It's okay. So outside of her being my mom, which I wasn't going to mention, but she gave up the goods. This is not working anymore. I'm just going to hold it. Yeah. So I'm going to look here because I'm used to looking at Instagram better than YouTube, but YouTube can still. No, it's okay. It's cool. If you want to look here, it's easier.
Okay.
Because this camera is a little far. I'm sorry. But I was telling my viewers that I'm usually used to being upstairs. I'm not used to all the space and noise.
Right.
So, and I have a fan on, so I was like screaming. But let's start out. So this episode is titled "Foundations for Faith." I guess you can explain it. I don't want to butcher the name. So after you.
The name Foundations for Faith represents a 501c3 nonprofit that I started several years ago. I had the good fortune of working as an executive director for a nonprofit, which was the arm of a very large church.
Oh wait, I'm sorry. I'm sorry, I totally forgot. No, it's not that. I forgot. They didn't hear, the people on the audio didn't hear what you said because I totally forgot you're speaking to the mic.
Oh, really?
It's connected to here. My bad. Instagram can hear you. But YouTube and the audio can't because of the headphones. So you have to speak into the microphone.
So you want to ask
them? Say what you're saying.
Oh,
like from the beginning because they didn't hear anything you said.
Yes, Lana just explained that it didn't get recorded, so I will repeat. And the question she asked was, tell us about Foundations for Faith. Foundations for Faith is a nonprofit, a 501c3 nonprofit that I started several years ago. I had the good fortune of being the executive director for a nonprofit, which served as the community outreach arm for a very large church. And in doing so, I worked there for almost a little over 9 years. And what I learned from that was that faith-based organizations and churches do so very much in the community, off very little. You know, for the most part, they are working off tithes and offerings, but yet they are feeding the homeless, offering services to children. Specifically, I had personal involvement with all of those, but including a transitional living facility for women and children victims of domestic violence. I mean, there's so many areas in which a nonprofit closes the gap in a community. And we saw that a lot during this pandemic. So from that time of working there, it was put on my heart that I wanted to, you know, as a nonprofit, you are constantly seeking funding. You always have to go for grants. You have to get money to do the things you're doing in the community because, again, You're only working, if you're a church, on tithes and offerings. If you're a nonprofit, it's on what people give you and what they donate. So after that lengthy time of working in that capacity, I said, I want to take the next step and go on the side where I am working with the individuals who have money. So I had the experience on the side of constantly seeking funds. So I immersed myself into the world of philanthropy to work with people who could donate money with ease.
So,
and should I say another line?
No. It's okay. It's cool. It's just that was but that was very insightful. I don't think I need to ask any questions. But let's back up. Let's back up. It's okay. So I have my questions, but I don't really think it's really like needed because you kind of answered all of them
Really?
in my questions.
Well, ask them.
That's okay. So let's back up. So I was saying to the people that this Women's History Month, right? It's the last day of Women's History Month, right? And it's Palm Sunday.
Mm-hmm.
And I mentioned in this episode last week that I did an episode on another girl's podcast for Women's History Month on refusing to be silent, women empowerment, women warriors, for sure it's called, women warriors. And, leaving like footprints and leaving like a legacy for the next generation. Or also, having that community to speak to, because it's hard sometimes in the, as they call it, urban communities, that you don't really have like that outreach to really connect with people. And sometimes as Black women, females, what have you, we're told to kind of like tone it down. We're told to kind of like, you're overreacting. And the reason why I agreed to be on her podcast for that specific reason was it kind of was, it was not empowering, but it was refreshing to hear somebody also wanting to, not just speak up, but also have a place for other people who normally wouldn't speak up, to give them the opportunity of platform to speak up, if that makes sense. Because some people don't really use their, I guess you want to call it, platforms for good. And not just her, but just people I've noticed in general, whatever talent you have. You just got to use, it was refreshing to see somebody using their platform, their voice to leave a mark on somebody, who's like watching and listening versus just talking about dribble. Nothing wrong with that, but sometimes it's nice to hear you talking about things that can actually make you think. That's, I feel like it's always good to, sorry for that doorbell. That's always good to have a place where you, not place, but conversation that makes you want to think. If that makes sense. Instead of just talking, you can actually leave the conversation saying, hey, I didn't think about this in the beginning, but now going forward, this might be something to think about, if that makes sense. So I mentioned that, but I don't know if you were in earshot to hear that, but I mentioned that too. But for, like I said, for this episode, I thought it was a good way to, one, be on another Black women's podcast, but also end Women's History Month with two Black females and discussing things that, not really discussed, but you can also, leave somebody thinking something, hey, I never thought about it this way. Let me try going this way. So, like I said, she kind of answered most of my questions. That's okay.
No, but because I may have different answers.
So I hope they can hear when we're speaking, not on the microphone. I'm not really sure because, like I said, it's only just me speaking. So we got to try to like rotate, but I'm gonna try my best to figure this out. So we can continue with what you were saying, but the first question I had really was to tell us about your foundation. Before we go into that, it was also kind of like a two for one deal with this episode. It was also titled Foundations of Faith, but also was something about nothing, but also was about leaving a legacy. So I think I had that question in here somewhere at the bottom, but we can go back to that. But also the Foundations of Faith, that being said, kind of could tie into leaving a legacy for the millennials or leaving a legacy for people of, what have you. So you can discuss that if you like. That was like my third question, but we can kind of like bounce around so it sounds a bit more organic.
Yes. Okay.
If it's easy, you could just hear it.
Okay.
It's right there.
Yes. That was a great lead-in because what I was going to say next was that once I started the foundation, I focused on those who had lots of income. And I wanted them to give back. Specifically, I would offer them different causes that they could give to, but I was going to people who had an overflow and abundance of money. Okay. So it wasn't millennials at the time. Um, then, the George Floyd happened, and Black Lives Matter happened, and I was so moved and impressed by the young people and the millennials. I mean, I marched right along with, my daughter and my son, but just, we all watched it, and I was just so impressed. And what stuck with me was how much power that the millennials have and the passion that they have. And that when you all get together, you can change things. So from that, it was pressed upon me that I wanted to start something to speak specifically to millennials. And of course, being a parent of two millennials, they're friends. I mean, I talk to millennials, and I said, millennials making legacy is what I want to focus on as an offshoot of my foundation. And that's what brought us here. And we thought it was a good time to do it during Women's History Month. So if you want, we can talk about what I mean by that and how the different ways that millennials can leave a legacy. And I'd like to just pose the question, what do you think a legacy is? Because I think we all think legacy means something, really, really huge, leaving $1 million, trust funds and things like that, which typically people of color don't have the luxury of having that handed down. My vision for this is that I wanted to share with you, it is not just money. So when the next question with Lana is that there are several things that I just wanted to point out and share with you that we can define as a legacy.
Okay.
Oh, do I keep going?
Mm-hmm. It's nice meeting that talk.
Oh, and why I think it was important for Women's History Month is because women are the backbone for raising children. We love our men. We love the two-parent households. So it's not saying anything about that, but throughout history, especially in African American communities, throughout history, the women are having an impact on the children. And even now, we look at grandmothers and we know how important it is if your grandparent is in your life, right? So in our culture, we have a lot of oral history. They tell you stories, they can tell you stuff that you don't read in books and things like that. But women are important. So if there are men, boys and men on this line, I am loving you as well. But I thought it was great that we could present this during Women's History Month. So millennials leaving legacy. You can do this. You are a powerful generation. I witnessed it. And if we all think about it, you have to embrace it because you all came together and forced change. You're so smart. You're so literate in a lot of ways, not just literature, but technology and so many other ways. So I want to impart the financial piece to you in ways that you can do things. You don't have to have $1 million, but what you're doing, it's a mindset. What does it mean to leave a legacy? And if the best way to do that, what I wanted to do was the purpose of this was I wanted to start like conversations. It could be, conversations, cafe, conversations over coffee, conversations weekly. Obviously, it's all virtual, but it could be a virtual conversation because I'd like to discuss the ways. And I could just sort of throw out some ways that I think we could talk about in how you leave a legacy. And if you're starting families, this is the time because you're at the time in your life where you can start with small amounts that lead to big amounts by the time you're my age. And legacy, again, is not just money. Okay, it's how we live our lives, what we teach our children, how we interact with our
Hold on one
friends.
second. You can keep talking. I totally forgot the stuff. So I think you meant to say that last part again. Just the last few lines you said.
Mm-hmm. Which for the last few lines, she asked me to say the last two lines again.
Like they can hear you, but just on here, it just stopped recording. That's
Oh,
all. So
okay.
I think like maybe like 2 minutes. I think the last 2 minutes.
So forgive me, people, because I'm not sure what the last few lines were.
Hold on. Okay, now go. Yeah, sorry. It's just like I totally forgot. Like I said, Anchor only records for 30 minutes, and then it stops. So I think because I started at 6, so just the last 2 minutes that you said that's all because it just stopped. I just saw it just stop, so I had to restart it. So I wasn't paying attention to the time, so I apologize if she's repeating herself or it just cut off randomly. Usually I'll say, just bear with me and get ready for part 2, so that I could be more like a lull.
Okay.
So I'll just have to just keep this. So I can see it. Let's do these questions so I can get rid of this tab and then I can see it because it's not computer. We can come back to it. You said you didn't remember. It's okay.
No, I was going to say I don't remember, but I was going to repeat the last two things that I think I said in case I didn't remember exactly.
Come back.
Because I do remember.
And if you like, it's cool. I just don't want it to cut off again, but I think we have some time.
Whatever you
think. Cool. Yeah, if you want to continue the last 2 lines. They heard you, just the audio.
Oh, okay. So I was going to say, I think the last 2 lines might have been, you're at the age in time where you can start leaving, building a legacy where it won't cost a lot for you to do it. So that by the time you get my age, it will have built up. And then secondly, remember I wanted to talk about the legacy is not just financial, it's not just money. It's how we live our lives, the things we teach our children, how we interact with each other and with community. So leaving a legacy, I just think that the millennials are so powerful that it is your time. And I would love to be a part of just discussing that with you. And it's a mindset change. And millennials leaving legacy. And I think that's what it's all about because we don't typically have that handed down to us. So we need to create it. Okay? Thank you.
Okay. So that answered that question, number 1, which was, no, that answered the legacy question. So this is with the foundation question. I don't even think I asked the legacy question. So we'll just start with this one. So the title of the episode is Foundations of Faith, which is also the title of your foundation. So I guess I just asked a generic question. Tell me about your foundation. So tell us about your foundation.
Okay, I think
kind of tied it in.
Yeah, we kind of tied it in. So my foundation specifically, I work with athletes, and I went there because again I was looking for people who would have the funds because I realized again from working with the nonprofit at the church, if someone who made millions just gave a teeny bit, a tenth that they don't even feel, to a nonprofit that is actually trying to bridge a gap in the community, it would mean so much to them. But I was directing it at the time to faith-based nonprofits. And I would self-identify, I would reach out to those athletes who self-identify as Christians. You know, if they said it on television, on the radio, when they had an interview, you kind of, know who they are. So they would appreciate where I was coming from. So that was really how I ran the foundation, how I'm running that one. But it's beyond that now. And again, once we went through the pandemic and George Floyd and Black Lives Matter, this issue began to press on me because the millennials have everything, you all have everything you need. So we want you to be the ones that are leaving the legacy, just like you have the athletes and other people who have money. You can shape the world. And I just believe it's the time for you guys to do that. You're already poised. I think the world of millennials, in case you didn't know.
she's too kind on herself. But I so okay, so you just answered the second one. I was going to say what made you want to start, but that was, she kind of answered that with what happened over the summer and stuff like that. But she's being kind. She actually, I mean, this is like way back. She was thinking of doing a foundation, but I think now the new branch of the foundation kind of grew to the athletes and things like that, because she's big on Christian faith and big on, Christian athletes. Because her favorite, she has a lot of favorite athletes, but her favorite one that she's always talking about is Russell Wilson on the Seahawks. So she likes him, loves the sport, obviously. She loves Tom Brady, but him specifically because of what he stands for and all that jazz. But before the athlete branch, before it was more so she wanted to do, well, actually, no, I think it was always a foundation of faith foundation, but the name kind of like changed over the years. She's being modest, so I'll do it for her if she didn't want to say this, but the name changed. I believe it's like Philanthropy of Faith, and it's like Foundation to Foundation. It was just a bunch of names in circles, but they all have the same word in it, which was faith. So I knew that we get back to that at the end of whatever we decided to call it. And before, she did want to work with churches and giving back to community, but then the athletes came, so it kind of really ties into everything and things like that. So what I think you might have mentioned this earlier, but one of the other questions was, let's say, well, this actually ties with the leaving the legacy for millennials question part. So more so was, I said, how is building a legacy for millennials, in your own opinion, going to shape a better future, or going to shape our future to look brighter, something like that. I kind of like had both these questions were kind of like half and half for the foundations and half and half for the legacy. So we can bounce back and forth if you want, kind of flow with what we're talking about. But yeah, I think that's a good question. How is building the legacy, or how do you feel building this legacy that you're trying to build for millennials? Or even before that question, another question: why are you choosing? I'm not getting to it. Millennials as your target. Like, why do you want to build like millennials versus building it for the younger generation? Because that is the next generation underneath us, which is the younger people. But why millennials? Like, do you feel are like the, what's that science word? Nucleus of everything.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Oh, okay, that's a good question. Well, believe it or not, I think they've expanded the age group from millennials, and it now goes to 40. So I believe that you all are poised for it. And again, I live with a daughter and son, so and all of their friends growing up. So, I get to talk to many of their friends who I think are wonderful. I really think the Black Lives Matter movement really brought it home to me. And when Lana was mentioning how the name on the foundation kind of morphed over the years, even on my business cards that I have is where passion meets philanthropy. And I think that's what you all showed as a group, just across the states. You were passionate about the movement. and you all came together, all colors, all races. But when you came together, you didn't give up. You did not give up. You demanded change, and you fought for it. Not all physically, but I mean, you were fighting for something that was important. And I think that we have to fight for our legacy, especially people of color. But I think the millennials I'm passionate about you all because you have so much. When you put your mind to something, the talent pool is amazing. You all are just so talented in all of the areas. Like if you were going to say the 5 sectors of society, you have education, you have finance, you have law enforcement, you have healthcare. I wasn't counting, that might be 5. I'm not sure. But just naming off the top, the different sectors of society, you all are in all of these sectors and you are powerful, even though you're coming out of college most recently, or even if you're in college, the things you choose to study, what you want to know about, you learn things so quickly, you're a quick study, technology is just amazing and off the charts. So you can do, and now with where we are after post Black Lives Matter and racism on exposed and everything now, if you're looking, diversity is what everyone is trying to scramble to make sure they're about. Even if you've been looking at jobs, every corporation, if they haven't done it already, they're scrambling because they have to make sure it's inclusive and it's diverse. So you're going to be in the position to not have to say that other people can do this and we can't. Because if you approach a bank for money, now see they can't just do what they used to do, all right? Because it's all the curtains are pulled back. So this is the time, and you're smart. So I'm gonna I don't know if this is part of your question, but that's your next question. But that's why I think millennials are a wonderful target audience. And when you put your mind on something, you build things so quickly. So quickly. It's up and running. And I'm so impressed.
Thank you. I'm just smiling because 1 of what you're saying, but 2, it's so nice and I have to speak for the whole time. I'd be so excited. But yeah, so I was trying to move this over so we can both converse, but I don't know. So, but I'm gonna figure that out as you're speaking. But no, we can still see the camera. That's cool. You can look here too. Okay. Before I answer that, the camera. Let me see. So somebody had a question. Wait. The thing is frozen.
No, I want you to answer a question.
Yes, there is a question on Instagram for you. I believe. I don't think there's a question for me. I think Marcus has a question for you, right? You don't have a question for me. So he said he has a question. So you can ask your question in the chat and I'll read it. So you can type it. But yeah, so I think this is a good conversation piece as well as starting a nonprofit, because I would always joke with my mom saying, how do you make money off of a nonprofit? Like, I never understood that. Not just her, just people who do this. It's like, I feel like they never can make money, but they're always asking for money. I never got that. But people do it. I don't know. And I always felt like they were like the underdog of the world of the philanthropy people. But until he writes his question, so until he writes his question, I'll just continue. And if you want to go to your thing, does that tie into what you were saying? Because I think the next question is something totally different. If he writes the question.
If I could just share, if I noticed it, especially during this pandemic, and remember when the nurses and when things were really, really bad, and nurses were working around the clock and so forth, you saw the nonprofits step up. People would form nonprofits. How about the chef who would just take his truck and go out and just cook for people? People put together nonprofits. Young people teens put together nonprofits so they could raise money to give, I don't know, masks to, right, to the nurses. So what happens is, the government has programs and has had programs over the years that we all know of that help people who, need to make ends meet. But the government can't do everything, and they don't do everything. And therefore, the birth of nonprofits. When you think of it, the United Way, the Red Cross, the Salvation Army, you think of those big names, right? But there are a host of other nonprofits that do the little things to make a difference in each community, especially now when people weren't getting unemployment checks and all of that. They were doing feeding programs. There was a lot of things. So, to your point about nonprofits, how do they make money? The key is not that you can't make money. You can make money. The key is you can't keep it and pay it out to shareholders. You make the money, you reinvest it into the mission and the cause. And I think underneath your question is, how is the person who's running the nonprofit making money? A lot of times people are doing it for something other than money. They're doing it because of the thing they're passionate about. Right? So in this case, I am passionate about wanting millennials to understand how they can have an impact and leave a legacy for for the future generation after you all, and for your children, especially if you're starting out as young parents. There's so many things, and even how we interact with each other. You know,
This is another part. This is another part to what you were saying. It's like a part two. Because I wanted
yeah, no, you go ahead.
No, but it's time to
Yeah, this is just a list of things that we would discuss if we were doing our conversation.
Yes, fine.
On millennials.
That's fine. We're gonna
get together.
We're gonna get into this. Cool. I just want to read this question. So my phone is this list, so I'm turning my head to read it. So right, Marcus says, "Do you believe millennials are the root for?" You know what? I'm not gonna break my neck. Just hold on 1 second. We do it like that. I'm gonna put you back in. Okay. It says, "Do you believe millennials are the root for social justice?" One question. Malcolm X, MLK, Malcolm X, etc. And part two. Interracial friendships are lacking because of what's going on. How can we improve that? So it's like two questions, and you also said, "What do you mean?"
Oh, is that Marcus? Marcus?
Yeah.
Hi, Marcus.
So the first question was, "Do you believe millennials are the root for social justice?" That's part one of the question.
Yes, I do, and my reasoning is the fact that I've actually had conversations at home. That's a good question. Conversations at home over the last few years, especially during this whole Black Lives Matter, saying, all of those who fought for social justice, they're passing on. Like, we don't really have many left. John Lewis passed. I mean, the only ones really, and forgive me if I'm leaving people out, Jesse Jackson, Andrew Young, Cornel West, Michael Eric Dyson. I mean, kind of, they're still here, but those people who fought for social justice, like with MLK, most of them are dying off. And so that's why John Lewis said he was so impressed and happy when Black Lives Matter happened. He was like, because, and people said if he was here, he called that getting into good trouble. But yes, I do believe that they're the root, because you all are what's next, and you're smarter in so many ways. And if you all come together, you have such impact and power. And now technology leads the world. You all, as they call you, natives, right? Your generation is called natives because you grew up with computers in your schools. My generation, we had to learn this way after, and I'm still asking my daughter how you do something. So you all have it like that, and with that, and everything else you're learning, and your smarts and your just your ability to think and to rebound. Yes, for social justice, because you've now seen it, and with the Capitol riots, I guess that was just confirmation of what the marches were about, even though we didn't know that was coming. It was so clear that there are injustices. How about the voting bill they just passed in Georgia? Clear that there are injustices. So yes, you all have the energy, and that's another thing I left out. You have the energy at this time in your life, the age that you are. You have the energy. Life has not beat you down and sucked it out of you yet. You see, the people that did this before, they've been through it. They've been, and they're tired. So they were just saying, "Go ahead, young people, go. We can only go maybe a quarter of the way with you, but you go. We're here for you. We're tired." Not, you know what I mean, like as a whole collective, that generation that was fighting before. So you are. That's a great question, and that's why I'm so passionate about talking with you, okay, about this.
Cool. The second question was part 2. So interracial friendships are lacking because of what's going on. How can we improve that? Interracial friendships and things like that. You know, down one of those, you should always have a friend who doesn't look like you. Him and Chris Homer are best friends. He's Italian.
Mm-hmm.
But to, I guess, continue, what's the word, to extend this question, do you believe that, like what Marcus said, are the not having the, I guess, the interracial friendships, could that also be, not the problem, but could that also be the solution as well too? Because you have a different perspective on the conversation versus just nothing wrong with being with, people who look like you, as they say, but do you think, to extend his question, I think I kind of got what you were saying, because I think it's always good to have friends who don't look like you.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, sometimes you can have I don't want to say like an extended conversation, but you can just have, like I said earlier, a different perspective on things that aren't looked at the way you were looked at. Because, if you have, African American friends, there's certain issues that come up, like with George Floyd and Breonna Taylor and Ahmaud Arbery, Tamir Rice, and who else? A bazillion other people. The outcome of that conversation is going to be the same. Angry and that, which you have the right to do. But sometimes it's okay to have another person, I guess, from outside, essentially who can contribute, who can either contribute to the conversation or contribute to help, solve the problem. And some people don't like that because they feel like, well, if they let a different type of person in, then they get too comfortable, and then it looks like you're like selling out to the man and stuff like that. But I guess basically to extend his question, do you think there needs to be more interracial friendships, or kind of like adding on to his thing? So I guess do you think there should be more interracial friendships, and that's the reason why the conversations kind of only stop the conversations, or do you think that that's the problem, that there are too many interracial friendships, that people think they can do whatever because, well, if you can do it, then I can do it type of thing. Like there's always that, underlining topic. Well, if you have white friends, I can say the N-word too. No, you can't. Even though Eminem said it once, you can't say it. I'm sorry. And then there's like that tiptoe line versus, well, you can do it, I can do it, or I shouldn't be punished for my ancestors all the time. You know what I'm saying? It's always another topic too. But I've heard of that being like not the center, but a big thing that people feel like, well, if you can say it, why can I say it? Or you have a lot of white friends and you're selling me out, blah blah blah. So I guess, do you think it's like lacking, or do you think it's like the problem? Kind of like, it was the end of his question, but I hope that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
I hope that makes sense. I'm stepping on the thing.
I think that's another good question.
I know I made it a long question, but
yes. And so just to be clear, the question I'm answering is,
what
do you think,
his question,
right? But I got everything. And what his question said specifically, do you think that lack of
part 2, interracial friendships are lacking because of what's going on? How can we improve that?
Okay. So I think that it's like you said on it's very layered. One of the things that I observed from the Black Lives Matter march was that you had uh, non-people of color marching alongside almost across all the states. And the reason that I think this is significant is that when this generation, like you mentioned, this generation of women, those non-people of color who were marching because they felt they understood the plight or they didn't agree with how blacks have been treated. Could be because they had friends or they just saw it, they just knew right from wrong. When you have them marching because they understand, what happened was not all their parents, for example, were okay with that. And there'd been, readings and writings about that. They were arguing with their parents, just like you all do. You all challenge us as you're coming up and getting older. You challenge what we say. They were saying, no, that's not right. It's not right. It's not right. And they marched anyway. So what happens is it's important, and to answer the question, because when you become the parents, right, then you're going to have a whole different outlook because you feel the way you do, which is different from the parents who felt that we were supposed to still be under their thumb and just deny that there was a difference in how the races were treated. So it does become hugely important. So having a friend at Don Lemon's book that just came out last week. What was it? The title was something to fire. Right. The conversations I have with my friends, he always says you should have another person that doesn't look like you. So I think that honest discussions are very difficult unless you're in a space where you can have those conversations, because people are afraid to say what they really feel in certain settings, right? So again, having these millennials leaving legacy conversations could be a safe space. But I think if we're talking about changing minds and hearts, it is important to have the discussions, even if you have to formally set the discussions up, because not everybody's going to have a friend of a different race where they can, sit down and chat with them. Do I think that this is the problem? I'm not sure I think that. I think that there is, in quotes, for lack of a better term, an old guard, two quotes, old guard. And that old guard is it's like a relic that's left. If you watch the TV and all the hearings and the Senate and all, these are old guard that just feels, that if they release something or let you in, they will lose. And the scare tactic, they're coming for you in your neighborhoods. It's an old guard. I don't believe millennials all think that way. I don't believe that they think that way. So I think they're more open. They're more open to going to school together, being in classes together. Then you end up with friendships together, going out to eat together. I think that the lack of friendships, I didn't really think that there was. It probably depends on what your exposure has been. So most of us, if they're people of color, they grow up, it depends on where they grow up. If they grow up in a neighborhood where everything is limited to that community and they don't get out of that community, then they don't have an opportunity to be exposed to others. You all go away to college, which is why you think that your parents want you to get an education, because that is how you get that exposure, right? So because you could have somebody sitting in your class from another country, from another state, from another race, right? You won't get that if you're just in your neighborhood and never get that chance to go. So this is a perfect tie-in. Leaving a legacy. Part of that legacy is you want to make sure that there are funds there that you can expose your children, right, even if it's you taking them somewhere on a trip that they get to see people that don't look like them. So leaving a legacy, how you raise your children, what you tell them, right? Do you invest in things that allow you to have enough money to take them places? So it's all tied in. Thank you.
That's very good. I just wanted to say, because I see it in red. So it's at 29 minutes. So like at 29 minutes and 45 seconds, I'll wind it down so I can stop it and start it again so we won't have a repeat of the cutoff.
Okay.
So I'm just going to rant for a minute until that happens.
Well, could you ask if I answered the question?
Did you answer the question?
Did I answer your question?
She wants to know, Marcus, if she answered the question.
Yeah, let me know.
But let me know why you're doing that, and then I'm going to stop this for my people who are listening and then start it again so it won't cut off. I hope it didn't cut off too much on the other one, but we shall see. But this is a great conversation that nobody really has. Well, they have, but it's not frequent. So I'm going to stop this now and start it over again on another part 3. And I don't know if he wrote me right back. He did say, thank you for your response. Appreciate you, as you know.
Oh,
So I don't know if I think you heard me like that. So I guess like my next question. Sounds like a report. My next question is, well, actually, to tie into the last thing you said about it's good that there are a lot of interracial friendships, black, white, Asian, Japanese, whatever. Does that also, like, it's good to have friends who don't look like you that can become long-lasting friends that can like make you look at things differently on both scales of perspective. But is that same philosophy applied to interracial couples? Because you can't just say it's cool to have interracial friends, but then not you, but say people cool to have interracial friends, but at the same time saying that it's not cool, but it's like, yeah, I guess not cool to have interracial couples. It's like there are a lot of interracial couples out there, black, white, with the guy being white, the girl being black, or the girl being white with the guy being black, or just other outside of nationalities too. You know, different nationalities, different faiths, too, different religions as well. So that's another thing too. To date, outside your faith and what have you. But with the interracial friendship parts, is it also like you personally? I guess I'm the one who's here. I can't speak for everybody else, but for you personally, are you applying that same philosophy to interracial couples, whether it be young interracial couples, older interracial couples, or even kids who are starting to date? Because some people like to, stay. Like, I know it sounds weird when you say stay in your lane, but like stay in your own background, as they say, backyard, as they say. But yeah, basically the question is like, are you applying that same philosophy to interracial couples? Because like you said at the protest, there were a lot of faces, a lot of different backgrounds, a lot of different cultures and things like that there. And that's also another issue too. Not that everything's going on now, but just in general, the interracial couples conversation. So that's just like a question. I don't think you wrote that yet, but that's just my question to that. Not just with this in general, like this what we're talking about, but just
right. So the question is, does that impact the legacy, or did he say it was a lack of that
I think he said lack
social justice, was it that kind of thing? So I think that
oh wait, no, not with the legacy thing. That was with the question you asked, but I'm saying in general, it's another topic. Interracial couple, are you applying the same philosophy for interracial couples?
Right. I think that there are a lot of more interracial couples than there were even probably 5 years ago. Definitely 10 years ago. You even see it on the television commercials. In the last several years, first we used to say there are no blacks in commercials. Now we've moved all the way to they're constantly they mix a black person with a person of another race, right? Or on in commercials as couples. So I think that there are a lot more interracial couples than there were, and I think that that is part of why the old guard, as I referred to it before, is so resistant because they are seeing this and they become more and more afraid that their race, the purity of that race, is getting erased or diluted, right? Because if you have a child with African American blood, then all of a sudden that person is not necessarily considered right, not a person of color. So I think that there are a lot more interracial couples, and I think that's why we are having. I really think that's why this racial thing has gotten to the max of explosion that it's happening now because they're being called out. They don't. They're freaking out about this because they see it coming. They know this is. They see their children coming home with a person of color, and they're not of color. So they want to head this off. They don't want this, and I think that's a fear there. So the question is this one of the ways to impact social justice? I think it will impact social justice, but only if the people involved make sure that it does. Because we'd have to be, for example, like the Jewish faith, for generations upon generations. They don't care what happens. Their legacy is handed down in every single household, in every single generation, for every one of their holidays that they hold holy. The Seder, the Passover, the Rosh Hashanah. They pass on those legacies generation after generation. It does not waver. So the Jewish people at every level knows their heritage and knows the legacy. That legacy is kept. African Americans have not kept the legacy. We didn't even have one to pass on financially, but most of ours were in oral stories told by the grandparents. And, our households typically don't have all of that all the time. So we don't really have one. So I think that if we're talking about, okay, can we impact it with interracial, only if you're keeping it, only if you're going to tell the stories, only if you're going to tell the stories, and it has to be intentional that you agree because the Jewish friends that I have, they there's discussion first of all that's a real taboo for them, but a discussion how we're going to raise the child. Is it going to be Catholic? Is it going to be Jewish? If one person's a Jew, they have to be that's a big deal. So if you're interracial and you're not keeping the legacies of your own generation, whoever of your own heritage, whoever you are, and leaving that for the next one, that's the only way it can get better with the future generation. So you want to leave, again, back to the millennials, you want to leave a legacy. And you all are open and understanding. So there should be that conversation. So for change, maybe African Americans would be able to leave something for their children. Monetary, as what investment, as well as all the other good stuff that we wanted to talk about. That is part of how you leave a legacy. Family. That's part of the thing. So only if you're actually going to focus and make sure you keep the legacies. Okay. It's my situation. I relive it. Alrighty. I don't know if you responded back to you, but I just assumed she answered your question, so we'll just go with that. I guess my next thing was, since we're still talking about the legacy portion, was I said being African American women, when in the workplace,
This ties back to you working with the foundation, what have you. Was it hard for you to one, work for a church, but two, try and get investors to, to see and believe in your vision as well? Again, it is a nonprofit. So basically, when you were working in the beginning and you wanted to do this, like when you wanted to start your own foundation as well as working for a nonprofit organization, what was it like trying to get people, A, work for a church, but B, try to get investors to see and believe in what your vision was as you're telling us now what it is, but even then in the beginning, it's still new, still fresh, but like what was that like? I guess maybe not so much working for the nonprofit organization, but more so when you want to start your own. So you got to, pitch to people to believe in what you're saying, just as you are now.
Right.
So I guess A, work for a church, and then B, with that question, part two, I guess.
Okay. That is a good question because it was difficult getting investors to give to a church because I, I, I was one of the first people to be able to get a bank to um, invest money, sizable amount of funding to a church because churches are enigmas to most corporations, or at least they were. It's changed now. I mean, they kind of don't speak the same language. Corporations want, quantitative, you got to show results and put the proposal together, and this is how we're going to get a return on our investment and all of that. And, churches hadn't been used to doing that. They were used to saying, well, we fed 2,000 people last month. And the corporate board is saying, okay, well, what does that mean? How does that translate? Churches weren't used to keeping, tabulations and records in that way. And a lot of times things that faith-based organizations do, they do it because the pastor has he feels God spoke to him about something, so he wants to move forward with that. Well, how do you put that on paper? You do put it on paper, but the corporate people are saying, what? So it was very interesting, but I enjoyed the building of partnerships the most of all. It was wonderful because it was about, I would invite people in to my office to sit, and I always had a conference table so I could talk. Let me show you what we're doing. Let me tell you what we're doing. Let me walk you around. Let me have some of the students that we're helping tell you what we're doing. And let me tell you how your money is going to help and where it's going to go and what it's going to do. And a lot of times they would say my passion about the program or whatever it was, would be what sold it. And I would invite them in to participate. So it was not simple. Certain organizations, they wanted to make sure you weren't trying to make people pray. They thought, well, if we give you money, you cannot, person doesn't have to join your church, or it doesn't. So that's why we started the 501c3, because they're separate.
And for the people who just joined,
a 501c3, it is a specific filing that you file with the IRS, and it basically says that you are operating not for profit. You are operating not to make money that you then share the profits with shareholders. And shareholders in a corporation, those are the ones that, the board members, and they want to get paid for their investments at the end. If you've made a lot of money, their shareholders' stocks go up and they get a percentage and that sort of thing. Well, with the nonprofit, you're saying that's not the reason that I'm formulating this business. I can earn money, but the money gets reinvested into the cause, the mission, right? So again, the big nonprofit names that everyone's aware of: Salvation Army, United Way, um, the YMCA. I mean, Red Cross. These are humongous. Feed America. I mean, these are big nonprofits. But there are a lot of nonprofits that you don't just ordinarily recognize their name, but they're doing the work in the community to help people that what would they do without just, and when you give them food, you're not charging them, right? But you have to have the money to be able to buy the food, to make the food, to give the food. So people who understand giving. And another thing I'll just share just came to me. If you look at some of the most with number one, two, and three on Forbes' most richest uh, uh, CEOs, right? Bill Gates, for one. These guys will tell you that they give away a certain percentage of their money all the time, even before now. That was part of their practice. So, but several years ago, they formulated what was called the Great Givers. So these are the top 10, 15 mega companies with the CEOs who are the richest. If you notice, they make all this money, and what do? They start the foundation. Why? Because that's how they're going to give back. They're going to give back through that foundation. So it's also a law, kind of a circular law. If you make and you give, the law says you also receive. In this case, I think I'm off the question because now I'm just talking, and I'm so sorry. But yes, it was difficult at the time. Now, for starting this other, see, I got back. You saw that, right? With the millennials making the legacy, this is something that just is I'm feeling that I want to share with millennials because I respect you all and I just, believe you are our future. And I would like to share my experiences, but to have you all participate so that I can share some of the things that maybe we all as a race haven't considered. That's part of leaving a legacy. And you're young enough that if you start now, you won't even feel it. So when you get my age, it's there. And we can be ones to say we left a trust fund for our child, or you can be one to say that, right? You left them real estate, you left them an investment portfolio, so that's the thing I want to see. I want to see because you guys, you have everything it takes.
Good stuff. Good stuff. So I'm trying to read through the questions and see and make sure that you really answered them. So I'm really not repeating myself. But
Oh, will it help to tell them that I raised millions of dollars? Even though I said it was difficult, I never said, but I raised millions of dollars. Oh, okay. I just wanted to add, even though I said yes, it was difficult, and I answered the question, I raised millions of dollars. So I was saying yes, it was difficult because I was saying this is what we had to overcome. But I raised millions of dollars. We built several programs, and the transitional living facility is a model program in the state of New Jersey right now, the Abigail Project. So, it can be done, and it's all about people and passion. And people want to give because they want to feel better about themselves. Companies want to give because they have to, because they're working wherever they have business and doing business, they have to give back where they have their footprint, or else they look like the millennials will cut them off. You know what? If you guys go, the statistics say that when you look for jobs, what that company is doing to serve the community is important to you. You all, your generation, won't even, you'll ask the interviewer, what are they doing in this area? How are they giving back to the community? That's important to you. And you'll not take a job if that company doesn't line up and seem like that they're really about the culture and social justice. That's what's different about you all. So companies have come, they're coming around. Everybody had to change. That's why you guys are powerful.
so So I guess I'll just jump to this other question because that kind of ties in with the last thing you said. So would you say this is a passion of yours?
Oh, can you tell? Yes. Um, because, you know, how will we judge if we have added value to our lives and to this world? How do we judge? So if I can give something back so that the next generation, even if it's just one spark, an idea in each person, so that you all can kind of go on and do your thing. You're doing it anyway, but I hadn't heard too many people talking about this at on the millennial level, and not just talking about money. So it is a passion of mine, and I, being home during this pandemic and just reading and observing and seeing what you all are about, I am passionate that I'd like to be a part of. It sounds really hokey because I'm like, I want to be a part of your lives. I want to be able to share some things that maybe we all hadn't thought about, and see where that can go.
Okay. So I'm trying to go my question. Stop writing. So with being a nonprofit organization or foundation, what suggestions do you have for other entrepreneurs who are in your position, or who are even starting out with wanting to start a foundation? It doesn't have to be the faith-based foundation, but just any foundation, or even just a business. It is tricky to start out with. You said, and I've read stuff that does take 5 to 8 years before you can really see any profit, or even not even like your own business, but like a small business.
Mhm.
But with being a nonprofit organization, what things are the word nuggets? I always like that word nuggets. Do you have for other entrepreneurs who are in a position or who are even starting out? Having the experience that you have also does help because we're up the ladder. But for people who, like, say, like you said, who just coming out of college and want to do those research, Teach for America type things, or do those Doctors at Borders type things, what do you feel are some methods you can give to people who are just starting out or who don't know where to go, what to do, or don't even know where 501c3 is, or don't even know what files to do, or where to look, like where to start? Because it is tricky starting your own business and doing your own. But from what I've heard you say over the years, and even just now in this conversation, it does seem there's a lot of levels to getting everything out, the grants, the grant writings, the money that's not there, the money that is there, and all the other stuff. So that's just, and I think I've asked you this before, but you can say that if you want. People, you might have mentioned it before, but just in general, people who are able to join and be who, like I said earlier, with that community, having a community to speak to and having that space to ask these questions, because it is scary sometimes when you want to start something, you feel like it's calling, but you don't really know, how to go about it or where to go or what to do. And you feel like, what's the point, after a while, when it just seems like it's too much to handle, on your own.
Right.
It's like a broad question, but
and I'm not a millennial, so I was trying to remember everything you said from when you started the question. Like,
well,
wait, what is it? No, I'm only teasing.
Did you really yourself?
Yeah, I'm teasing.
You sure I can repeat it?
No,
to make it simpler. Basically, because I know you forgot everything I said. But basically, what nuggets do you have for people who are starting their own faith-based foundation, and B, starting their own business or foundation? Those are two different things.
Yeah,
maybe that'd be a little bit narrower.
Well, starting a business is, you can choose a for-profit business. So when you say entrepreneur, that's what I think of, a for-profit business. If you want to start your own nonprofit, then that's everything you kind of just talked about, which I think is more. The part that it's faith-based was just where I came from, because I had the benefit of working for, and our church had 8,000 members. So in 2 campus locations, so that's what they call a mega church. But when I started the 501c3, it didn't exist. It was just on paper with the filing, and then we had to build it. So that was my job, to build it into programs, services, and raise funds, write the grants, design, develop the programs, submit them for grants, then implement the program. You have staff after a while when you're doing all this stuff. But if you're starting a business, a for-profit business, um, you know, or I guess either way, I would say you would start with something that you have a genuine passion for, something you like. We don't want to use the word overuse the word passion, but it is a good word. But you start with something that you like. Also, you would start with something that, or you would look at something that there is a need for, right? Is there a gap? Like, you could see where this could be used and it's not there. So you're feeling like a niche that if you did this, everybody would kind of need this to do something else they're doing. Or you would decide whether or not what your goal is, I guess. And whether or not your goal is that you want to make money, and you're in this to sell a product, right? Could be anything. The product could be a lot of different things. But are you trying to sell a product that moves from, a person to a person that they will pay you for? So then you are in it to make money, and that's not a bad thing. You want to make money because you may have a whole list of reasons what you're going to do with the money, right? But you want to earn money. People go to business school to learn how to run proper businesses. What is your reason for wanting to do it? If you, have a social justice calling, and there's something you could be concerned with prison, how people are treated in prison, or is there a re-entry program when people come out, or there's some social justice incentive that you want to be able to address. It could be around education. I mean, there's so much to be done in a lot of different areas. So decide what it is, what's the reason you want to start. And you kind of like look at those things. And that will also help you to whether or not it needs to be a nonprofit or a for-profit. And if it's a for-profit, there are a lot of organizations that can help with that. The Small Business Administration, Rutgers has programs that will help you with that. So they're places. And if you're trying to do a nonprofit, there are organizations that can help you with that. When I stopped working with the church, I went on my own, people would come to me all the time because they knew I wrote grants. So constantly saying, can you write? I want to start this business. Can you help me get a grant to start this business? So I do consulting now for just my card. Oh yeah, but it's not over here. I'll go get it and show you my card.
Wait, say that again.
I said, yes, I have a card. It's just not over here with me. I'll go get it and show it. But wait, I wasn't finishing. Wait, I was on a track there. See, no, I'm a millennial, so that thought now is gone, right? Okay. But tips for starting a business. If you get that far and you want to run things by somebody, that's something that we could be available to talk about. You have an idea for a business and you want to know if it's viable. And you don't have to start huge. That's another tip. You don't have to start huge. Start small. And the last thing I'll say is look to see if other organizations are doing the thing you think you want to do, right? If you want to do it and people are doing it right next door to you or 3 blocks down, my suggestion is that you either think about how you can approach them for a partnership or you select something else. Because when you start to have to go for funding, whether it's a loan, if it's a for-profit, or it's funding in your nonprofit, you will most likely not be able to justify getting yours off the ground if somebody 2 blocks down is doing the exact same thing. So developing partnerships and translation to your generation, the networking. So you partner, and that's what I do. I help you write the grant where it's a strong. You weave it to where you say you're going to have a strong impact with your and use the partners to do that.
You go, thank you.
Thank you. Am I supposed to go get my card now?
Yeah, why don't you go get your card? Because it's at the 29-minute mark, and then I'll just ramble until I can stop and start. This is actually the first time I've been a four-part podcast. But yeah, and actually we are getting through. We are getting through some of the questions that I had, but she's also tying in with the other questions too. So it kind of like saves me from asking the same questions. She kind of goes on to even answering the questions. This is good. I hope you guys so far are enjoying it. I know it's longer than I normally do, but that's okay. Like I said, I'm happy with not being the only one talking. It's so nice. Trust me, it's so nice. But yeah, so she's going to show you her card, but I'm going to stop this to end this one, and then we're going to go to the next one right about now. And look at that. I think it was green. So that's where that's gone. So let me. All over the place. Okay, so you can show them your card. So I'm gonna zoom in. I'm gonna lean up so you can see it. So
we should read it now. Because what it says in there is
so front too. I'm gonna show you guys what it says. I'm just gonna read it first for Instagram and YouTube. It's hard to see. So the title of it is the Foundations of Faith, but before it was the Giving Foundation. And the front says, bringing your vision to life. And on the back, it has a passion meets philanthropy. That's what she was mentioning earlier. So I'm going to zoom in so you guys can see it on YouTube. Go. Instagram. It's a little hard to see it. And then that. I know it's kind of backwards, but yeah. But and right now, currently working on the website for patenting September. So stay tuned for that. But you guys, like I said before, I always say feel free to write me or DM me for any questions that you have, and I can pass it on to her. So in the middle of getting the website up. That's why when I was working on my website, I didn't even mention it. There was no point mentioning it. I kept tweaking it every 3 days until it was perfect. Even now, I still add things to it. But you can find my website in my bio and stuff like that. But for her, it's still pending. But if you have any questions on what you've heard so far, you can write it in the messages, or you can just send me and I can pass it along to her, because as she said, she is doing or wanting to do currently is doing, but would like to do more of the consulting work and things like that. So we have we have 4 more questions left. I'm just gonna ask, and then we can go back to your notes so I can stop looking over here. So I guess I'm gonna combine 2 of the questions so they kind of go together. Okay. So the next question after that one was 1, why a faith-based organization? Why a faith-based foundation? 2, do you believe that catering to just Christian churches or just churches is alienating future endeavors? Meaning, like, if you just catering to Christian faith-based organizations or just Christian churches, you see, not now obviously, but you think that will hinder you down the long run of not alienating everybody else, but like if you're just in this one box, right. You know what? How do you go with that? So why athletes, number 1, with faith-based organization, what you want to do, foundation, and do you believe that catering to just Christian churches is alienating future endeavors, future partnerships, future investors, you know, down the line? I think somebody wrote pure knowledge.
Oh, thank you so much. Thank you. Mm-hmm. That means a lot.
You know, I didn't repeat the question.
Wait, no, I think I remember. It was Just wait till you get my age, okay? Just wait.
It was why athletes, and do you believe that catering to just Christian churches is alienating future endeavors?
Okay, right. Well, that's a nice question. Why athletes? I have such a passion. I still do for basketball. I mean, I was a jock growing up, right? Like my whole life, and I played sports and played sports in college, and even as a grown-up mother coming home with my suit, I would play parent or brother in the driveway, basketball. So I kind of like was always into it. My husband is a big sports fan, and that's sports across all, sports. So when I was thinking of doing this, remember I said pick something that you really like and that you really enjoy in the area. So in addition to me trying to say what would be the easiest way for me to talk to someone to ask them to donate, that's not going to put them in a hardship, because I mean that's part of when she asked the question, was it hard, to get people to invest? Nobody ever wants to just release their money. They just don't want to release their money. Even when it comes to tithing in the church, people don't always have to ask, right? Because nobody really wants to give away their money. So I said, well, I'm so into basketball, and if I took a look at them, I believe that even if they gave me just a pinch of what they earn or have, they wouldn't feel it. I wouldn't be putting them in hardship. So that is why I chose them. And for 2 straight years, I studied the NBA. Like I watched every single game. That was part of my research. I watched basketball for 2 solid years straight, every single game. My husband's a big Knicks fan, so I knew everything about them. I don't want to start having you guys like judge me and hate me because I picked, I like LeBron, just in case, it's okay. But I also, football, when I moved to football and studying football, like she mentioned, I love Russell Wilson and the Seahawks, and Tom Brady was my favorite, and Paul Pierce, after basketball. So I did a lot of research on that, and I picked something that I liked. So watching the games was fun to me, right? But now I was watching so that when I spoke to them, I could know everything about the game and say, oh, I remember when you did this, when you did that. And it wasn't a struggle because I enjoyed the sport. So that was the first part. Why? And so the faith-based, again, I said go with different question. Go with something you're comfortable with. And for me, my passion was I saw how much the church did on so little. Right? And not just my church, but the other churches. I mean, churches, they're doing it on tithes and offering. And just if they could do that, what if they had people donating large sums of money? They could just make such a huge impact. And now fast forward to where we have been with this pandemic. What's been happening with nonprofits and churches and faith-based organizations giving away food and helping and trying? Because why? Because they're called to do that. That's what they do. So I started with that because it was a Christian church, and I started there. I realized, and I've had this conversation with many of my friends when I was starting this faith-based foundations for faith. They said, well, you have to, shouldn't that mean all faiths? And I don't have a problem with that. I just started where I know and where my heart was and where my passion was. What you're talking about is interfaith, and if someone of a different religion or faith wanted to work with my organization and to donate money, because it's not about me. You're not giving me the money. It's going to the cause. We're giving it to those faith-based nonprofit organizations that are doing the work. It's not going to me. it's going so that we could put up scholarships to give to people or grants to give to the nonprofits so that they could do what they do, I would be more than happy. And you know, we if why would judge that goes against everything that we believe in? So I hope that answers that question. Thank you.
No, it definitely does. So I'll save my last question for the end. I know you said you had some points you wanted to talk about, anything? Or was that what we were talking? We really tied into that?
And no, these are the points. I had some points to show as examples. The show as examples.
You want me to show it to you?
No, I wanted to say them, but these are the things that if we could do this, what we talk about, like if it was going to be once a week or whatever we decide, right? Just an idea of some of the things I want to talk to you about. Right? When we think about how do you leave a legacy, totally the financial part is a part of it, right? You want to be able to be part of the group where they said, oh, our parents left us a trust. When I got a certain age, I was able to draw this down. You know, I know very, very few African American families that can step into that. But I want you all to be that generation that can leave that for their children. I want you to be that generation. So, for example, obviously stocks, right? I'm just naming a few things, but these are the topics we would explore. These topics, life insurance. Now, life insurance sounds like something old people do, and I know I never thought about it because when you work for a company, you get life insurance. So, well, what's the deal, right? What are you thinking about? But trust me when I tell you, there's more to this. Property, right? Rich Dad, Poor Dad, if you ever read that book. I have one for you. You ready? It's called Shared Jet Services, right? Net jets. Your generation, you'd love to do this, right? You don't have to own a jet yourself. Okay, so we'll save that. See, I'm just giving you nuggets because I want you to say, yes, you'd like to have these conversations with me. Okay. Charity and philanthropy. Remember, I mentioned it's a law. It's a faith-filled law. The more you give, the more you get. Also, and wealth is not only money; it's a mindset. Okay. The other thing is our children. Just we talk about what do we want to leave them. That would be a whole concept. What do we want to leave them? And that's just I'm just whetting your appetite. So I'll save the rest in case we can really get into talking about it. But just think on those things, right? That can be exciting and things you can do now to put those things in place so they're working for you and you can and even if you don't have children in the future, you put yourself in a place where you can leave a legacy attached to your name. Maybe there's a scholarship with your name on it that we set up. Right? Okay. That's where we're headed. All right. Thank you so much.
I was in the screen. Yeah.
I know.
Yeah.
Yes.
I thought I locked this out. You know how pissed I would have been? All those words wrong and all that time they spent. But was that all you had in your notes?
Yes.
My question
for
is,
sure.
I can wait for the end.
Yes. No, that's good. That's good. That's good. So wherever you want to go from here.
Anything else you would like to say for our last question? What do you think?
Okay. Do you want me to say what I had to say to them, or are you posting it somewhere? Or do you want me to say it? I'll say it.
Let me see how you do it.
If you talk it, it's not that long.
No, I meant for me to post it. I can still post it too. You sent this to me, so I can still post this when you read it. This is fine.
So read it when you post it.
Well, when I'm done, I'll post it and then something.
Whatever is best. One of us to read it. No, I think you want to read it. Okay. I'll say it first. Join me in a conversation to explore what it means to leave a legacy.
Which is tied with what you do today. And
so you
I know
start right here.
But you mentioned these
too. Yep. So you start right here. Traditionally.
This is what she sent me about maybe a week or some ago about what she wanted to discuss and things like that. So that's why I said it's 2 for 1 for this episode with Foundation of Faith, her foundation, and also what was the title again? Legacy, leading a legacy.
Millennials.
Millennials leading legacy.
Yes, millennials leading legacy.
And you said the age now for millennials is what is
25 to 40.
And what was it?
It didn't go as far as 40. And forgive me, that yeah, it didn't go up to 40 before.
It was recent?
Mm-hmm. As of the other day when I researched it again, it's 25 to 40.
All right. So I'll read what the overall nugget of. So it says, traditionally, African American families have not yet had the opportunities or been in a position to create a legacy from generation to generation, and especially have a wealth legacy. Today, millennials are in a unique position to understand what our parents and ancestors did not. You have the ability to start now, at this point in your life and careers, to build what previous generations couldn't. You can be the wealth builders of our generation. Last part.
Join me for a conversation around this topic and explore how we can begin to set the foundation to build wealth for yourself and design the legacy of your choice for your future generation. Thank you.
Anything else you'd like to add? Or did you think you spoke on everything before I asked my question? Or
I just want to thank you for bearing with me. I was, nervous about it.
No.
I know I threw Lana off. I threw her off because she had to rearrange and be in the living room and do all these things, and I threw her off how she normally does.
No, it's totally fine. That's the only thing. It was great. I'm just happy that I wasn't the only one talking again for a whole 2 hours because it's exhausting.
Okay. Thank you all again, and I really do hope to have another opportunity to talk with you when we and that we may do our conversations. Oh, okay.
That's because I still have a question mark. I'm already closing out the show.
Sorry. Okay.
I just meant if you have anything to say on what you just said.
Okay. I think I said everything. If you have questions that you want to send in, I'm super happy to answer them. And hope that I at least kept you engaged and it wasn't boring.
No. So my question was, I guess closing question. Well, it's funny. She said she only wanted to be on here for 20 minutes. So you know what time it is now. It's almost 8. But we started at 6. But the question was, what do you want people to take away from watching this particular episode?
What do I want people to take away? I want you all to take away how special you are. How special this generation is. And, during the Black Lives Matter, I think you all were so invested and busy trying, feeling all this stuff that was going on. And for me, being able to kind of sit and watch you all, plus having grown up with some of the previous leaders, knowing what we went through with the MLK and the Jesse Jackson visited my college. You all are just so special, and I think we finally hit this generation that has that well, I don't want to say ride or die, but fight or die kind of attitude. Like, no, we're not just rolling over anymore for anything. We're not for anything. We're not just going to take anything. We want equal and just and fair, and it doesn't really matter if we're not black. It matters that it wasn't white, you know? So it's about, treating people like humans. Um, and if we stay with that, a lot of things will get solved because you do feel that way. And underneath everything, that is the faith base of it. It's how you treat people. It's about love. And I don't mean to be corny, because I was in the 70s and that was like the love of a different love, power, or whatever. I'm just saying it is faith-based because you care for your fellow person. And the injustice to one truly is an injustice to all. And I think you guys said this is what we stand for. So with that in mind, you can build something for your children and the next generation because you guys have what it takes. Have what it takes. So we can I'll be more than happy to kind of like, spark that fire and then, supply information and have those conversations. I could be like the old mentor, but not that old, just old. Okay. All right, super. All right, thank you.
That concludes your show.
Yes. Yes, it's been a pleasure. I can't believe I'm sitting here with you interviewing me. Okay.
See, are you still nervous? Like I said before, you only want to be on 20 minutes.
Yes.
In 2 hours.
Right. I didn't think I could, but it was great.
So you had a lot to say. Remember I said to her a couple days ago, she said she's nervous, she wanted to be on too long. Originally, she didn't want to be on the camera. We were going to do like a Zoom thing. I was going to be upstairs where I normally am, and she was going to call in. But I'm like, well, maybe you can just be on for like 10, 15 minutes because you're talking about something that you love and enjoy. I feel like you get slightly less nervous when you're talking about something you enjoy. So originally that's what was going to happen. But then she's like, no, you gotta do it. But then come down here, but then I still don't want to be on the screen. So I'm like, there's going to be a voice talking in the background, like I'm talking to myself. But I coaxed her into doing it this way. But and I mentioned before to her, and also on the show, on the podcast, that this has doing them live has helped me with my public speaking because I'm very shy. She's looking at me like, no, you're not. Like, but yes, I am completely shy. So this helps me with eye contact and speaking loudly and unreading and saying words like this. So it does help with, not the phobias, because and I wanted to make it more sort of a conversation. That's why I was like kind of reading questions, but kind of not like a regular girlfriend conversation.
Mm-hmm.
But when it's not structured and you don't feel like you're being like interviewed, it's less weird. Like on the podcast I was on last week, it just felt like a girl chat, a girl panel versus like come on here about this and you're just like, I don't know what to say.
But it's interesting. What's interesting is I always had to talk to donors, banks, and other individuals who I had to bring in and kind of woo to say, here's what we're doing. So I'm talking to people all the time, but it was just different because.
And that's the thing. I don't know why you're so nervous.
I've never done this little intimate sort of setup, and
you call it intimate?
And I didn't, because you're always upstairs in your quarters doing your thing. I didn't want to disrupt.
No, because it's just easier. And you see all the distractions. But this is nice. It's nice to be not stuck in the corner.
Right.
Stuck in the corner. So it's nice to be out. I keep forgetting about this thing. But yeah, so.
Right. Well, it's, I think it was very uplifting. And again, just to circle back to Women's Month.
Mm-hmm. Last day today.
Yes. And so we wanted to do this before the Women's Month was over.
Because I've been trying to get her on since I started this, like for a year and something.
Right.
And we live in the same house.
So this was very important and special that we were able to do this because I'm sharing this as a woman, an African American woman. yes, but wanting to impart some knowledge to other women, and you younger women who can just surpass me and do great things. And again, the men who are on this line, I have a son whom I love dearly. So please don't think that this is not about you, because you are super important to all the households and all of the relationships. And this is for you too. Okay, but Women's Month was my time to be the woman to get it out. All right.
Wait, hold on. I'll start again.
I said to, but so in saying that, I wanted the men to understand that, but just that Women's Month was my chance as a woman to be able to share this with you and to say that I did it, and I didn't just keep it in my pocket, you know, at my desk.
Yeah, she has binders and binders and binders of the work that she's been doing for some time now. So she's modest. I don't know if it's for you. She's a Scorpio, so you don't know. But no, she's very.
Does anybody? How do I know if they liked it? There's no question. I don't see anything.
What do we?
I don't know. What? How do you know if they?
Well, they're watching.
Did you all like it? I'm not used to not getting the feedback from the person in front of me.
It's not. They're watching. See the people, the square thing in the square thing in the corner.
Yeah.
The gray thing is viewers, and then the people in here who chat.
Cool.
And once I post it, because again, that's why I always mention when I do my live on Sunday. It's usually I'm done by like 7:30, but it's also Sunday, so
yeah,
I don't get the views and it's another they like it.
Oh, that's for this day.
I like it.
Okay. Thank you.
What do you call it?
I'm familiar with the chat.
From Zoom. What do you call it? What was I trying to say? Right, because it's a Sunday, so people are either winding down, going for dinner, starting their week.
Thanks for sharing some of your time, because I do know what that means.
Or, just not on social media. So usually when I check back on like the feedback they're looking for, it comes later in the week.
Okay.
But I guess it was yesterday. They loved it.
Oh, okay. Wonderful.
So you get more views later in the week, and I always appreciate people who tune in when they can.
Yeah.
On Sunday, because it is a Sunday, and I was struggling in the way beginning of what day to do these podcasts. I felt like Sunday was kind of weird. But in the middle of the week was also weird because people are at work.
But between the Bible studies on Zoom and church on Zoom, I mean, there's a lot. So
because everything's on Zoom,
right? So I know people's time is valuable, because normally I would be cooking dinner. So appreciate it.
I know that hit me. I'm about to go eat, but yeah. So that was that. But if you would have anything else to say, you can add, or I'll do my little 2-3 minute closeout before it stops.
I think I'm good, and I'm proud of you for all you've done. Even watching you, that's part of why I'm motivated. And to my son, I don't know if he's listening. I'm proud of you too, and hope I made you guys proud.
Yes, you did.
Cool. Thank you. Goodbye, all.
All right, so I'm gonna do my little close out. Are you gonna sit here? You can sit here. You can get up if you like. I'm
done. Okay.
Yeah, you can stay here. That's fine. I'm only gonna talk for another 2-3 minutes before this closes out at the 30 minutes. I'm just gonna do that. You get to do it. Yeah. Doesn't matter. I was just gonna say, my little close out. Thank you. My phone. You want to be in it? You want to be in it? What you do? You don't even need it. Scorpio diva, and she's at the height of the month too, the beginning of November. But yeah. So
no denials.
But
right?
Leo's
no
still the best, though. I don't care what anybody says. Leo, got that fake Leo Virgo mess. Leo. Anyway. But yeah, no, I appreciate my mom coming on. And like I said in the beginning, I wasn't going to say she wasn't on. But originally, the title on here was featuring Missy Chia. So I wasn't going to say it at the end. I wasn't going to say it. I was going to say it at the end. She's like, so she's like, oh yeah, cat's out the bag. So no, we're not sisters. Even though she loves when people say we're sisters, it makes her day. It makes me age more. But no, I do appreciate you guys, as my mom said, tuning in. Even on a Sunday, even on who's saying the Psalms? Palm Sunday. I appreciate that. I know Passover was yesterday.
When you were walking
Friday.
Friday.
Yes. And speaking of walking, I didn't even do my walk because every week I always mention I do my walk. I didn't do my walk today. I did yesterday my run. I tried to do. Finally got the body muscle ish to muster up to do between 3 to 4 miles a day. I started officially jogging / running. Before it was just like fast paced walking.
Every Saturday.
My heart hasn't been out here. It's kind of been like right here. So it's still a lot. But I do encourage, even if you do like an hour, because I do maybe 40 minutes to like an hour, to just get out there and walk. But it's so nice out. The other day was what, 72 degrees? So, I do encourage you guys to get out. I do appreciate everybody who tuned in. I appreciate my guests. And I have another special surprise next week, too. This is the first surprise, but another surprise to start out April. But I appreciate everybody tuning in. And don't forget, it's live every Sunday at 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Live on YouTube and live on Instagram at Lana Corner. I hope to see you guys next week. I don't know why I'm smiling, but I hope to see you guys next week. And thank you for tuning in. And always say, enjoy your Sunday. Be blessed. And, do something tomorrow that you didn't do the day before. So I thank you guys so much and enjoy the rest of the evening. Sorry it was so long, but yeah, a lot to talk about. So stay tuned and see you next week.
Bye. Good night. Oh my God.
Let me do this one first. So there's no mishaps. So give me a minute. And I have to tell you what happened with the guy. Hold on, wait.
I got a piece of
Okay.
You sure it's off?
Yes, there we go. I didn't get back to you.
It's over there, so I got to do something.
I gotta give it back to you. So I thought I gave it back
Oh,
to
yeah,
you.
you do. Okay.
You got a tea this whole time?
Well, towards the end there.
Dad came up. I was like, okay.
I texted him and said, please go get the thing.
He never did.
I didn't see it.
It was right up front.
Did he come to the thing?
Who?
To the guy. I wrote to the guy. I said, can you read it?
I can tell you when you come back. It's still outside.
I thought he would read it because he needs to.
He did eventually.
Because I answered and I said, yeah, and he didn't. Maybe he went out to the garage.
He's still outside.
No,
Maybe he got
to,
it.
to give the guy the thing he needed.
I don't think so. Okay.
Can we see it?
I didn't post it yet.